Welcome back to Foodie Down Bronx. I'm your host, M, the Hungry Dominican. Our next guest make up Comelonaz, a woman of color Bronx-based foodie duo set to take over the food scene right here in the Bronx with delicious and healthy recipes. Welcome to the show, Stephanie Rodriguez and Quenia Alvarez.
Thank you for having us.
Hello, ladies. Thank you for being here. So the first thing that I need to ask you, because maybe some people aren't aware, but what exactly is a comelona?
Comelona, a person who loves to eat a lot.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Which is us.
Yeah.
Very good.
Yeah, so we came up with the name because we thought it'd cause some laughter, but at the same time, like we enjoy food. We love food. We're very passionate about it. So
Right. So you guys have a sense of humor.
we do. I
Okay,
think that's
good.
the only way to like
Very good.
survive in this life.
Tell me a little bit about Comelonaz. How did it come about? How did you guys come together and join forces? And of course, what is your mission?
So it came about pretty much. We would hang out, and then we would always end up back in the kitchen, like just chefing it up. We could be doing anything else, but no, it was just being in the kitchen. Our conversation consisted a lot about food, and then also I currently am my grandmother's caretaker, so like she's always in the house, and she's like the dawn. So she pretty much was the one who like taught me how to cook, and so I've always been passionate about it. My mom doesn't cook, but my grandma was the one who like taught me everything.
Right.
And then Kenya.
For me, it was, I come from a background of women who cook. A lot of the women, a lot of their indigenous practices, their culture, the farming. I've learned how to cook a dish from scratch.
Wow,
From
okay.
scratch.
Okay.
So I come from chefs, cooks. To me personally, I feel like my mother's a chef. She's been cooking since she was 7 years old. There's not a day I don't remember being in the kitchen.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's your background exactly?
Soy salvadoreña, Salvadorian
Okay.
from Central America.
So yeah, the food culture there is amazing. It's so
Thank you.
delicious. So you guys would hang out, and most of the time you would be in the kitchen. Would you guys be creating recipes or doing recipes that you grew up with? Was it more experimental, or was it just sort of, I know how to do this because of my mother or my grandmother, and then you guys sort of, kind of created this whole thing based on that? How was it? Was it more experimental stuff or classical dishes?
I would say it's a little bit of both.
Mm-hmm.
I think experimental came because of the classic dishes. Like I think we had like the palettes down, like the flavors down, and we're like, how can we like do this fusion where it's like 10 times better but healthier? So I think it started out like that. Also, I used to work at a very renowned superfood store. Can't mention that, but during that time, I remembered I was at the register and I saw like a line of kids, and they came in, and they were privileged kids. It wasn't really like minorities. I'm sorry, I hate using that word. Kids of color. And so I was like, wow, they're learning what a pomegranate is. They're learning what pears are, like different types of pears. And like we didn't have. When I say we, I mean like myself. I'm speaking for myself. Like growing up in the Bronx. I didn't know any of that. So I felt like it was, at that moment, I was like, wow, I should do something about this. Like I'm seeing this, I should take it into consideration, to account, and like become responsible for this because I'm passionate about it. So why not do something with this? And so that was before, that was just like lost in thought, right? Like,
Right.
And then, we met, and then she felt the same way, like in her own, with her own experiences, and we were just like, let's do this. Like, ironically enough, it happened in the Salvi spot.
La Cabaña.
La Cabaña
La Cabaña.
Salvadoreña, shout out to them, in Washington Heights. Yeah, we were just there, and we're like, we gotta do something. And so we took that responsibility, and we take it very seriously. And so we're starting out now, and we're trying to have fun with it. Our goal is to like really be influencing like the community, the kids especially, because that's the future generation,
Right.
to inform them, and so that, and also letting them know that they can have fun with it. Like a lot of times kids don't even have, parents at home because they're working, overtime. Like, nowadays to spend time with their kids, it's a privilege. So in order for like them to learn, they have to start somewhere. So
Yeah, I relate to that. My mother was working. She was a single mom, so she was always working, and she would prepare meals on the weekends, but Monday through Friday, I was like a latchkey kid. I was basically by myself, just doing my own thing. So my relationship with food was not the greatest growing up. I think that you know what's healthy, but if you don't have the palate for it, I think it's hard to sort of appreciate it.
definitely.
And so I'm seeing a lot right now with a lot of what's going on with food justice, and everything is political, of course, but when it
Definitely.
comes down to accessibility, the types of foods that certain neighborhoods have access to and just don't. I'm realizing that maybe it was the same thing for me. Maybe I grew up in a neighborhood where I didn't have everything that was given to a lot of these certain kids who live in certain neighborhoods. You know, how long have you guys actually known each other?
About 3 years.
Yeah, about 3 years.
Did you meet up at that spot, or was it?
No, we were
Or-
friends
We were
before
friends
that.
Okay, so
before
the
that,
idea the
yeah.
idea was sort of birthed at that spot, maybe.
Yeah, it
but
was
not-
birthed there.
Okay,
Right.
okay, I see. So you guys do a lot of plant-based foods.
Yeah.
Does that mean that one of you is vegan or vegetarian, or is it just something that you sort of just still want to push that message out about plant-based foods?
So for me, I wouldn't say I'm 100% plant-based, vegan or vegetarian. I do prefer cooking plant-based. More towards the vegetarian because I do enjoy
Right.
cheese. Once in a blue moon, it's okay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, for me, more vegetarian, I would say for right now.
But you indulge in like meat here and there
No,
occasionally, or
no.
so just like dairy, like cheeses, or
Like once in a blue moon, yes.
how about yourself?
Right now, I'm more vegetarian than anything else. I still eat seafood, so I don't know if I'd be considered a pescatarian. So many Aryans, but in terms of like, I wouldn't call myself vegan either. However, like Comelonaz believes in more fruits, more veggies, more
Yeah.
nuts, more things from the earth that help us. That give us the nutrition that we need, the nutrition that our bodies lack. Like sometimes we'll have like a headache or something, and there's something medicinal that can help us out, and we have no idea because we have disconnected from nature. We've disconnected from that, from the earth, from the soil, and so that's something that we believe in, just like more food with integrity.
So it's really about like the healing power of food,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Which is undoubtedly true, and it's something that throughout my life I've realized that too. Because going back to, like I said, I was a latchkey kid, so I didn't really prepare myself the healthiest meals, and I realized that there were so many ailments growing up that I had that I really could have been just fixed if I had just had a better diet. If I
Right.
had if I either had taught myself about food, or if someone was just around to sort of teach me about food. So I had went to this panel that you went to as well, the Woke Foods panel.
Yes.
That was Isabel Batista's panel.
Yes.
And I did not see you there, but apparently the rumor is you were there.
Rumors you were there.
I was definitely
Okay,
there.
I don't see you.
And they in keeping with the subject, they were talking, and once we come back from break, we're going to definitely get into this, but they touched upon how gentrification is playing a part in how, again, certain foods are in certain neighborhoods and who gets it and who doesn't. And that was one of those things where, and I said it in a previous episode, where once you learn that, you really can't unlearn it,
Yeah.
and it affects your relationship to food. So when we get back, we're going to be talking about that a little bit. All right, guys, we're taking a quick break. Foodie Down Bronx, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Foodie Down Bronx. I'm your host, M, the Hungry Dominican. I'm joined on set by Comelonaz. If you don't know about them, now you know. Here they are.
And if you don't know,
Now
now
you
you
know.
know.
So we left off talking about the Woke Foods panel that, again, rumor has it you were there, but I...
Vika, you were there.
and they talked about gentrification and gentrification having this effect on certain foods that people have accessibility to. It's going to be a silly question, but what do you think about gentrification? What do you think are any positives in your opinion, and what are the negatives? What's going on in the Bronx?
I really, personally speaking, I haven't really found any positives to it. I've heard positives, and I try to keep an open mind. But when it comes to like hurting, if it's gonna hurt my people, then I can't really, be open to that. But I feel like, I'm definitely, I would have to say I'm against it. I've been affected by it. I know a lot of people who have been displaced as well. There's a lot of pressure, kind of like falls on top of you, and you like don't really know where to go, right? You don't really know where to go because you're like kind of closed in, especially when you're like a working class person and you just don't have the financial means to make it by. Or you walking down the block that you grew up in and you see like your favorite colmado, or your favorite grocery store shutting down, or you see your favorite, restaurant and they're not there anymore.
Right.
And then you miss the faces and you're just like, wow, like the faces are looking different now, you know? And so it's sad. It's sad and it's infuriating to see my people being erased like that because of this capitalistic system. I'm going to keep it real if I could. And so, yeah, I feel like I'm very passionate about this topic. And so it's something that I like discussing with other people. Like Kenya and I talk about it a lot. I feel like it's something that at the same time, even though it's trying to like break us, it's also gluing us together.
I believe that too.
You know,
I do.
I've attended panels where we're just like really mobilizing, and we're just like, what are we gonna do? You know, like where are we gonna go? Do you have somebody to stay with? Who's gonna hold you down? You know, and I feel like that's the Bronx. Like, who's gonna hold you down? And then we hold each other down. We hold each other down. We find a way. We make a way if there is none. You know, and we still out here. I've seen there was a lady who had a shop by I believe like Marble Hill area. Excuse me. And she got shut down. She made amazing empanadas, and she's not there anymore. But then a few months later, after wondering where did she go, I saw her on a cart, and I'm like, dale, like, you know,
she was still doing her thing.
She was doing her thing.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
She was doing her thing.
That's the ever-present like Bronx hustle. You just keep doing your thing, keep going forward. Kenya, you're from Washington Heights, and that's my old stomping grounds. Walking around that neighborhood, or Washington Heights, Inwood, for me nowadays, it's kind of crazy because so much has changed. And I think when I was younger, not realizing the effect of gentrification, but see, because for me, 10, 12, 13 years ago, I don't even think I knew what the word gentrification meant.
Right.
I just saw my old neighborhood looking a little bit prettier. Right?
The designs, the aesthetics.
Yeah,
You know?
and I was like, okay, this is not the worst, because I actually moved out of my old neighborhood on the cusp of all the change that happened now. It was around like 2004 or 5, when at that point, there was already a Starbucks up on 181st Street, right? But, again, I didn't realize that this was a bad thing. I was like, oh, this is dope. There's a Starbucks in my hood.
Like, it's catering to you, right?
Yeah. I was like, now I don't have to take the 1 train to like 66th Street. I have a Starbucks right now. So walking around Washington Heights, around the Inwood area, around Dyckman, around 181st, 176, while there's still very present Latino culture, predominantly Dominican, it's changing a lot. And I want to lead into what happened to you, because this happened to what gentrification really affected you on a very, very personal level. And I'd love for you to share your story.
So gentrification, I didn't even know the term gentrification. And this all happened in Florida, because my mom, she owned a restaurant, a Mexican Central American restaurant for about 10 to 15 years. And, slowly a lot of our clientele were mainly people of color, Black and brown people. Slowly they started raiding the neighborhoods, and a lot of our people that were there were immigrants, just like myself, my mother. We were immigrants from El Salvador. And after those 15 years, the rent just started going up higher. And it's just like our people just started disappearing out of nowhere. And we didn't know that our land, that block right there, was just being gentrified.
Right. You just sort of slowly you start seeing the differences in your neighborhood, but you can't really grasp what's going on.
It feels like it's not affecting us, and then out of nowhere, out of the open blue, it just happens.
Right. Yeah, it's kind of like when I noticed that Starbucks, right? So I didn't think anything of it. I saw it. Pretty sure I was like okay with it, initially, and then I moved out like 1 or 2 years after that happened, and then every time I would come back to my old neighborhood to visit friends and family, I would hear another story about so-and-so having to leave. They can't afford the rent.
Yeah.
And then I would just start seeing the landscape of the residents around there. And then all of a sudden I started noticing that there was a lot of, better food options. Right?
That's food deserts, right?
Yeah.
Right. And it was a thing where I was like, well, wow, I've been here for, over 20 years of my life, and I didn't have this option all of a sudden. And then these things come in. I'm assuming that's probably one of the reasons you guys feel so passionate about what you're doing, right? Because it's kind of like, let's take this back to our people,
Right.
right? The idea that if a neighborhood changes, that the new residents get all of these better options, why can't we?
Exactly.
So then you guys are sort of taking it upon yourselves to do that. Now, can I ask, do you guys have any culinary background, or is it just sort of you naturally just went into this?
Like I said, sorry.
no.
Like I said, for myself, I come from a wide variety of women who have been cooking since they were 7, 9 years old in their motherland for so long that, you know, those native dishes, those practices have come upon me just watching her, watching my tia Rosa cook pan dulce from scratch, atol de lote, which are like, you know, like, wow. Esto diferente. Sorry that I.
No. Break that Spanish
just
out.
comes.
Go ahead.
It comes out naturally.
We're a bilingual show.
Spanglish, right?
Spanglish.
As I got older, I didn't know all of the work that was put into it. It's a lot of work.
Yes.
It's a lot of work.
Yes.
a lot of work.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the reasons I was so turned off by cooking, because but then I started really appreciating my mother when she would cook in the weekends, or my grandmother when I would go visit her, because cooking's not easy.
Yeah.
And it's definitely something that one of the reasons I love chefs so much is because, you know, I don't know, it might sound a little corny, but it's like it's not corny. It's edible art.
It is.
It is
also-
edible
They're
art,
creating
yeah.
something for you, and they're really pouring their blood, sweat, and tears into this thing. And I felt like food is one of the most personal things you can experience. You know, somebody gives you a plate of their homemade food. It's
Yeah.
like
That's like an I love you.
yeah,
You know?
like there's a connection being made. There's a memory being made.
Yeah.
You know, much like you growing up, seeing your tia Rosa making that was a connection for you, right? And then, like, you know, like I remember, like, my grandmother, we had a very funny relationship. I would always ask her after school to make me rice, beans, plátano, chuleta, and then I would get home and she would make like sancocho or like a salad, and I'm like, what do
Give me
you?
the bad stuff.
Like, give me. But then I realized that, you know, she was giving me the stuff that she felt was her version of love. Like, this is what I want you to have. This is what I want you to taste right now. So, you know, but and so that's through my grandmother. That's when I realized that food is just more than just what's on your plate.
Yeah, we definitely
Right.
eat with our eyes, for sure.
Absolutely.
We appreciate the aesthetics of different dishes. Like,
So you guys
we
like spend
judge.
time like plating and stuff.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we judge. Like we go out, we're just like, that could have been better. Like, it tasted good, but it could have been better.
Right.
But I think that's all part of the art form. You know, I think if you're passionate about something, you're gonna be like, you know, meticulous about it, and
Sure.
just, you know, I don't have culinary background either, but again, I can piggyback off of that and say the same thing. Like, even though my mother didn't cook, she can make some slamming beans though. That's for sure. And when I used to eat ribs back in the day, don't judge me, y'all. But and also yeah, you know, there's a such thing as like vegan shame. I mean, meat eating shame. You know, like
Sure.
what is it? Like, you can shame someone for eating meat. You know, and I don't think that that's fair either. So we definitely, like I said earlier, honor like the berries, the nuts, the fruits,
Right.
things from the earth.
The healthier options.
The healthier
right?
options, you know.
Awesome.
So.
All right, so we'll talk more about that when we come back from the break, okay, guys? All right, guys, we're taking a quick break. Foodie Down Bronx, we'll be right back.